What are these things that we keep putting it off because we're waiting for the best time to do it rather than just going for it? If you reflect back on your items on that to-do list, what are the things that are always there but are never happening? Those are the things that you really need to lean in on, and actually, when it makes you feel uncomfortable, understand why it makes you uncomfortable. How can you actually get through this next hurdle? What are the decisions you need to make? Who are the people you need to speak to? If it's about changing your career, if it's about improving your career, if it's about quitting your job, if it's about starting a new business, what are you running away from? Don't run away from the hard answers, because the answers aren't going to be that scary. And if anything, it's going to help you improve what you do further down in the line. Hey, what's happening? Welcome back to another episode. Well, what I should be saying is Happy New Year. Hope you had a lovely Christmas break. Hope you had a nice time to just take a step back, relax, and just, enjoy, especially now that we're entering into 2024. So I thought to myself, let's have a quick episode today, just discussing around intention for 2024. But before that, again, I'd like to say, how was your New Year's? How was your Christmas if you celebrate it? Or how was your spending time with your family? So for me, it was the first Christmas for us to spend with my baby girl, who is 5.5 months now, actually. It was an interesting time. She didn't have a clue what was going on, so she was just awake. Like, she was literally wired. Normally her bedtime is around 7, but she was up until 11 p.m. because she just did not want to sleep. She was that excited about all the new people around and all the new sounds. So it was a great Christmas. It was a great New Year's period for me, especially going into 2024. My mind's been thinking about, what are my themes? What are my principles? What are the standards that I want to go through for this year? So in this episode, it's just a catch up. It's just like a conversation between us around setting intention for this year. And even when you look back at 2023, what lessons, what reflections do you want to bring into this new year? And especially, what have you learned that you want to make sure that you implement in this year also? So as always, like, subscribe, follow. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you give us a 5-star rating. If you have any information, questions, topics, anything you'd like to discuss, you can hit me at yemi@theshortestpathpod.com. So my words for this year are going to be around discipline, systems, and growth. Discipline being around, have I got self-discipline when it comes to snacks, sweets, food, all that kind of stuff? Discipline when it comes to working out. If you remember, last year, 2023, I done like a 100-day challenge of going to the gym every single day, and it worked. It was quite successful. However, towards the tail end of the year, life got a bit more hectic, so I weren't able to maintain that practice. This year, 2024, the idea is, what are other areas in my life that I want to bring that discipline back into? Again, like I said, sweets is a key piece, but even little things such as journaling, meditating, praying, what kind of structures are important for me to put in place so that it can literally lay the foundation for the things I want to do next, which then goes into systems. So systems is a topic that we've discussed with a few different guests, but systems are things that run when you don't even have to be there. So running without you having to think about it, things that happen on autopilot, or routines, rituals, things that need to happen regardless. So thinking of that with myself, whether that is delegating more of the things that I do on my to-do list rather than me doing it to myself. And then that goes to the next word, which is growth. So expecting growth in the things that I'm doing based on the discipline and the systems. Now, in terms of the principal theme standards for the year, so I've got a few. The first one being, do what you do and do it well. So this is coming off the back of our episode with Paul Otote. And I love this kind of principle because it's about like standing on business and understanding, what you do and how you can do it in a way that's like to top notch. When I think about this, there are two groups of people. There are those who know what they do and how to do it well. And there are those who don't necessarily know what they do and how to do it well. If you're in a first group who knows what they do, the key thing is, how do you work on these strengths and how do you take them to the next level? How do you combine them with the other skills in your repertoire to essentially become this like triple threat where you have a competitive advantage that other people can't match with? So one of those things you should be thinking about this year is like, where are my strengths and how can I really, really develop them even further? If that's around like sales, how can you get better at it? Are there certain conferences you want to go to? Is it marketing? How can you get more practice at that? Even if it's like finance, are there any qualifications that you might do which would be beneficial for you? If you're in a second group who you're not necessarily sure about what you're good at because you're multifaceted, you have a lot of strings to your bow, you like just, I don't know, like pushing yourself in different areas, then the key thing for you is to start looking back over the past number of years, like literally taking time out and start to analyze what are the threads that make you who you are today? What are the things that you enjoy doing? What are the things that you're good at? So literally prioritize that time to understand what these threads are so you can know what you do and how to do it even better. But again, it starts off by dedicating that time to spend reflecting and understanding yourself. And also understanding like what do you want. In any case, in whichever group that you're in, the key thing is that you're presenting the best version of yourself, even when you're in a place where you don't want to. So even when things are down, things are rubbish, things are shit, and you don't want to, make sure that you're giving it at the best of your ability. Now, a second principle is it ain't that scary. So how many decisions are we actively avoiding? How many people are we too scared to contact because they might reject us or they might ignore us, they might air us out? So what are these things that we keep putting off because we're waiting for the best time to do it rather than just going for it? So if you reflect back on your items on that to-do list, what are the things that are always there but are never happening? Those are the things that you really need to lean in on and actually, when it makes you feel uncomfortable, understand why it makes you uncomfortable. How can you actually get through this next hurdle? What are the decisions you need to make? Who are the people you need to speak to? If it's about changing your career, if it's about improving your career, if it's about quitting your job, if it's about starting a new business, what are you running away from? Don't run away from the hard answers because the answers aren't going to be that scary. And if anything, it's going to help you improve what you do further down in the line. So whether that's asking for that pay rise, asking for that promotion, it doesn't matter. Like, empower yourself to know to do what is right. So it ain't that scary. Just go for it. Another principle, overthinking is overrated. Now, in this situation, I can raise my hand and say I'm a big overthinker. Overthinking is about when you're thinking about all the different scenarios. If I do this, will that happen? If that happens, will this happen? If I go there, who's there? And so on and so on and so forth. You end up in this pattern where you're looking at variables that are completely out of your control. So take a step back. Yes, prioritize the future, but be flexible of how you're going to get there. So don't be too down in the dumps when it comes to planning and overthinking. Again, it goes back to the it ain't scary. Like, make that right decision. I'm someone, when it comes to problem solving or planning rather, I like to figure out all of the problems before I plan because then I get a much better plan. But in reality, the key thing is to plan and then figure out the problems as you go along it. Because there are two different seasons. There's a season for decision making and a season for problem solving. And I think at the beginning of the year or the end of the year, wherever time it may be, you're in a season of decision making. So making intentional decisions about how you want the year to come, regardless of what happens. So when problems do arise, then you're in that state of, okay, I'm at this problem, how do I solve it? And then you're more in like a creative space where you can speak to other people because you've already made the decision of how you're going to do it and what you're going to do there. And an example I'd give is like crypto. So with crypto, mate, it's bad for me. So like each and every time I get in there, I have a strategy, but I don't stick to it. And like when I think of the last bull run, which was in 2020, 2021, like I was putting money all over the place with no strategy in mind. Whereas this year, I'm saying, okay, I'm only going to focus on a certain amount of coins, regardless of the FOMO, regardless of people telling me that I can make riches here, there, and everywhere. Literally, 2 days after I made that promise, I started getting excited and I was about to put money on a whole host of different things. But I had to check myself and understand that I made a certain decision for a certain reason. So I made the decision and I problem solved by saying I'm not going to do this thing. So you have to try and get back into that kind of element where you're planning, you pre-make your decisions. When the problems come, trust in your ability to figure it out or go back to the decision that you made in the first place. So you don't go back into a trap where you're making the same mistakes again and again and again. Again, when it comes to problem solving, you need a little bit of space. And in that space, that's where the faith comes in. This is where the things where you cannot see, the people you do not know, the opportunities that you don't know where they came from will start coming from. So always know that there's that little bit of faith that can take you to the next level. So you can't plan to the nth degree, but be open and willing to what can happen. Another principle is challenging yourself, but having fun. So think about this year. What is one thing that scares you? How do you want to approach it? For me, I hate running long distance, but I'm running a Hackney half marathon this year. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but somehow I'm going to do it. But that's something that scares me, and it also gives me an opportunity to get back into fitness, to push myself and do something I've never had done before. You got to start noticing like when you're on autopilot, and remember to look at the journey and appreciate where you are. You know, what's one thing that your future self will be proud of, and go ahead and go for it. And lastly, as I mentioned, it's like having faith. So focusing on that 1%, how can you get better each and every single year? De-risk your risk, trust in your ability, and track what you're trying to track. So yeah, that's a quick whistle-stop tour, but thank you for listening. Thank you for rocking with me. Like, subscribe, follow, and looking forward to speaking to you again this year. Peace.